You know, we told you that some cities around California try to do something about public employee pensions. And one of them was San Jose, where they voted for pension reform. Remember, we covered that story. In fact, we called it a joke at the time, but it wasn't a joke. Remember the city manager, the mayor, Chuck Reed of San Jose, said, if we keep going the way we're going, there'll be only one employee left in San Jose, public employee, and that'll be the one that hands out the pension checks. Remember that quote?
Yeah, that's right. That's where the trend lines are pointing. One person to cut the checks.
Well, they did vote for pension reform there, making public employees pay more into their pension plans, and apparently there were some pay cuts that came along with it. And guess what's going on? 911 dispatchers are quitting. They're accepting resignations faster than they can train and hire replacements.
Good.
They're authorized for 140 dispatchers and call takers, but they only have 93 on the payroll. The only thing I wonder about this story, which comes from NBC Bay Area, if anybody else is quitting in government in San Jose, how come that's not a story too? But because it's dispatchers, the public's going to gasp and go, oh, no, there won't be enough 911 dispatchers to save my life.
The phone is going to ring and ring and ring, and I'm going to die.
I almost didn't want to do this story because I suspect something's up with this and the type of media coverage.
I suspect that too.
If somebody quits in a cubicle in like the actuary's office, or I'll just make up a city office, or the planning department, who gives a crap?
Right.
But it's a dispatcher, gas, fainting couch.
Grab the pearls.
Kelly Carroll, a 24-year veteran of the department, said they're leaving because of the pension reform and the loss of pay. We had to take a pay cut. In fact, Supervisor Sharon Fisher, I don't know what her salary is, but she says, I've had to lose my house over this. And I'm thinking, well, wait a minute. You took a job as a dispatcher expecting to own a home? I mean, this is...
I don't believe that. I don't believe you lose your house because you take a pay cut. There's another story going on there. It takes a lot to lose a house. That's ridiculous. You know what? It's not that hard to become a 911 operator. We've heard enough clips. Some of those 911 operators do not sound like the shiniest bulbs. All right?
Now,
it's not hard to say, well, what's going on, ma'am?
A city that we don't really care about and could use some pension and pay reform is San Francisco, where a Chronicle reporter, and this is a film material, Andrew Ross, who writes some pretty good stuff. They revealed today that no fewer than 572 San Francisco city workers and executives made more than Jerry Brown. In fact, more than 1,500 city workers made more than the state attorney general, Kamala Harris. The Citizens Compensation Commission president, Tom Dalzell, said that's pretty staggering. Jerry Brown makes about $174,000 a year. Harris makes about $151,000 a year. Now, the details coming out of the city controller's office show that a quarter of the city's 36,000 full and part-time workers made more than $100,000 without overtime. 195 workers and execs made more than $200,000. Topping the list was the police chief, making $321,000 a year. The fire chief made $315,000, and a whole bunch of police and fire deputy chiefs followed right behind those two. The mayor was actually number 27 on the list with a salary of $261,000.
No, it's a racket. People don't know that these employees are making ever-increasing salaries, huge health care benefits, huge pensions that everyone's going to have to pay for until we die. This is getting larger and larger. There's another headline in the LA Times today. California budget increasingly goes to salaries and health care. When Jerry Brown unveiled his latest budget, he emphasized his push to send more money to universities and local schools. But a new report says those areas have lost ground to the growing costs of salaries and retirement benefits for public employees. And by the way, the money that goes to universities and local schools, that's for salaries and employment benefits too. 80% of the money that goes to your local school goes to payroll. So it's all about fattening up public employees, whether they're teachers or anybody else. That's the whole scam. It's the whole. Everyone says, well, most of the money goes to education. Most of the money goes to salaries, health care benefits, and pensions in education. It doesn't go for the crayons. They make you buy the crayons yourself.
And another clue to the problem came from a quote from the mayor's office in San Francisco. Christine Falvey said, whenever the city opens a contract, We look at comparable rates around the region. We're looking at how much we're paying employees and finding good people and balancing that with the city's fiscal health. That is something we've talked about on and on since Gray Davis was governor, and the legacy he left by giving out all these raises. They all copy each other. And what they're saying is, well, they're paying $200,000 to their police chief in the town 2 towns over. I want that kind of money. Right. That's not how it should work.
And then 5 years
and that just gets crazy. They outbid each other.
And then 5 years later, everybody's making $250. 5 years after that, everybody's making $300. Everybody's pointing to the county or the town next door.
Well, yeah, that has a circular firing squad effect on the taxpayer.
And they know that. And they think that's the Trump argument. They win. Well, they're paying that in the other place. It's like, so you're all wrong. You're all ripping us off. Everybody's overpaid. That's not the winning argument. That's the winning dodge, apparently.
All right, her name is Courtney Aoki. That is apparently the first person who was shot to death yesterday in that shooting rampage out of Orange County, carried out by a man by the name of Ali Syed, who eventually took his own life. We have details on that, plus a 911 call made by Syed's mother and father. Come on.
John and Ken Show. John Cobell and Ken Champeau.